Sam Bankman-Fried trial has entered its second week. Joining us now to discuss is CoinDesk Global Policy and Regulation Managing Editor, Nick Day, who is also the editor of CoinDesk's State of Crypto newsletter. Hi, Nick.
Hey, good morning.
So a bit of a reprieve for you today. The court is not in session after a very busy week last week, but of course the trial will resume tomorrow with a star witness for the defense expected to take the stand. What can we expect from that?
Yeah, so former Alameda Research CEO Carolyn Ellison is expected to take the stand sometime tomorrow. Prosecutors made the announcement after the end of the trial day on Friday, saying that once Gary Wang, the former chief technology officer and FTX co-founder, completes his testimony, she's next. So, we've already heard quite a bit from Gary Wang about a number of issues that we've either heard about or suspected, or have otherwise been discussing around FTX and its relationship with Alameda. But as the former CEO of Alameda and as the individual who the defense is trying to lay the blame for Alameda's collapse on, Ellison, I think, is going to be she'll be able to provide a lot more context about the specific actions that she took and about the specific finances that are at question here.
And to be sure, she's a witness for the prosecution, correct? And I would assume the diaries, the famous diaries that came out in public, will those factor into this questioning at all? Do we have any sense of what will happen there?
I think insofar as the defense might try to, raise questions about whether or not she was basically doing her job, right? That might come up. So, what we've heard from the defense so far, including in its opening statement, is they're trying to present this image of Sam Bankman-Fried as someone who was meaning well, trying to do well, and got in over his head, and which led to the collapse of FTX. But during their opening statement, they did point to Ellison as a figure who, in their words, did not do her role, did not hedge FTX's or Alameda's, actions, even at the direction of Bankman-Fried. So, insofar as if there's anything in the diary that specifically points to her feeling, incapable of doing, executing her role. We've also seen from past filings that the defense might try to, for example, bring up concerns about, whether or not she was sober at the time she was running the company. They said they intend to try and ask questions about recreational drug use. I think we'll see a lot of questions that are really basically going to be designed to try and discredit her as a witness for the prosecution.
So last week we had FTX co-founder Gary Wang testify on Friday, and he said that Alameda Research had special privileges at FTX that allowed the crypto hedge fund to spend $8 billion of exchange customers' money. It seemed like a pretty significant revelation. Can you talk us through what those privileges amounted to and why it was important?
Yeah, so the basic premise here is something we have heard about this a little bit. Alameda had the ability to draw funds from FTX through, what Gary Wang described as a very large line of credit, up to $65 billion worth at some point, without having to worry about, what funds it actually had in FTX. This basically allowed it to, as you mentioned, draw up to $8 billion of FTX customer funds without necessarily having the collateral or any kind of way to pay it back in the course of its activity. And, one thing that it's, probably worth mentioning here, this figure was something like 100 million or 500 million at the end of 2019. So all of this, the $8 billion functionally, or at least $7.5 billion of it, happened over the course of like 2 years, or 3 years rather, which is, relatively, it's not a long period of time for a single company.
So, Nick, after a week in the courtroom last week, what are your major takeaways? Any sort of nuances that you've picked up on in the way that the defense, prosecution, or the judge has handled this?
Yeah, I mean, I think from kind of just like a neutral observer perspective, I kind of appreciate what the Department of Justice is doing here, right? This is a case about, this is obviously the biggest case in crypto, and it's about some pretty important companies in crypto. and the actual technicals are, I think, to some extent a little complicated. But the DOJ has really tried to go out of its way to ease the jury into it. The jury, it's a group of lay people. They're not steeped in crypto or, for that matter, steeped in finance or the law. And so you've seen the DOJ kind of pull threads from witnesses, just kind of building on, what is cryptocurrency, what are crypto exchanges. We didn't really get into anything super technical until Friday, when they finally started pulling up code from FTX's process or servers and systems, and asked Wang to describe them. And so it makes a lot of sense, I think, this approach rather makes a lot of sense to me, because again, you don't want to confuse the jury with, here's all the weird crypto stuff happening. Their basic allegation is this is fraud, and fraud looks exactly like fraud anywhere else. So here we go.
Yeah.
Similarly, we haven't seen a lot in the law yet, which I think we'll probably get to. But
I mean, is it ultimately they're painting it as the crypto is almost irrelevant in this case, right? Because it's ultimately a fraud case. So you don't have to know. They could be selling lemons or poultry futures or something, but this has to do. It just happens to be crypto. Is that coming across to the jury? Do you get any sense that they're like, the technicals aren't the issue here, it's the fraud?
That's hard to say. The jury, it's been 3 days for them. We've seen some of them, alert, taking notes, paying attention during the course of the trial. Others have had a little bit more difficulty, staying awake, something I can absolutely relate to at that hour. So I think, again, the trial's still just getting started. We've only had really 3 days or 2.5 days, really, of the actual witness testimony and arguments so far. So I think we'll see what happens this week, and whether or not the jury is starting to really get more into this as we proceed.
All righty. Well, thank you, Nick. That was CoinDesk Global Policy and Regulation Managing Editor Nick Day. Don't forget to sign up for the SBF Trial newsletter, special edition that takes you inside the courtroom.